our first guest, Kevin Jackson. Kevin, you may have seen him on The O'Reilly Factor. He was on The Glenn Beck Show. He is an author of The Big Black Lie, a distinguished gentleman and a scholar. I know he's going to laugh at me for that. Kevin, thank you for joining. This is Ron Christie, guest hosting on the Steve Malzberg Show today. Thanks for joining us.
Well, Ron, good to be with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I was listening to the caller, and he was describing an America that would have eventually evolved into, it did to a degree evolve into an America that we all know and love as conservatives. And that is, people, back in the time when he was talking about blacks and the way that they were treated, blacks were respected. Whether you liked our color or not, you had to respect us, in the sense that the way we raised our family, the way we comported ourselves, the way that we stressed education, the way that we were very spiritual, not the level of spirituality that they talk about today of blacks being religious, because that's just a farce.
That's right.
The way that our children behaved in public and things like this. We are a far cry, blacks in general, from that description of black America. In fact, it's embarrassing when you look at the Trayvon Martins and these kids that just killed this Australian guy for no reason, these knockout gangs, and people that have been raised to hate white people, essentially slapping other blacks in the face who have paved the way. And have built a country that has created iconic black figures, people who are known worldwide. Go to anywhere in the world and say Muhammad Ali, say Tiger Woods, say Oprah Winfrey, say Michael Jordan, and on and on. We have the most iconic blacks. We have the largest black middle class, the largest number of black millionaires per capita, the largest number of black billionaires, the largest number of black first in the world. And yet, you can't get black people to shut up and just enjoy being a part of the greatest country that has allowed that to happen, overcoming all of those things that he's talked about.
And see, what you just said there really just gets me just hot under the collar, because as you pointed out, we've made such dramatic progress. I don't understand for the life of me why these people wouldn't want to take a victory lap in light of the 50th anniversary of Dr. King's speech last week, as opposed to their continued race mongering. They're trying to stir the pot. They're trying to divide us on race and ethnic issues when, frankly, we should be pulling together. So what do you really think is behind this? Why do they keep doing this?
What a way to put it. That's exactly what should be happening, is blacks should be taking a victory lap and shutting down the thuggery that goes on in the black community and essentially changing the tide of that. Because had we been left to our own devices and not had the experimentation of the raw deal and the ingrate society thrust upon us, we would be per capita leading the number of CEOs that are in the Fortune 500. Now, if you're asking the question why, it's very simple. There's so much money on the other side of this issue. I mean, look, ask yourself this question. Why did Jesse Jackson want to cut the naughty bits off of Barack Obama? He thought Barack Obama was going to end the idea of racism, that his presidency was going to be a bad thing. He was mad that he didn't get to do it so he could continue being a racist, and he figured Barack Obama is going to embrace this whole black-white cultural thing. And when he found out that he didn't, Jesse went, holy cow, Operation Core, we're still in business. In fact, we're in better business than we were before, because this guy is not going to say one single thing to thwart the idea that America is not a racist country, because there's too much money in it.
Here we go again with the black cultural pathology outpouring. I do not know if, culturally speaking, Kevin is a product of the black slave narrative or a descendant of slaves, but he is a very unbalanced person, or I should say, pardon me, that he has a very unbalanced view of reality. Never in all of my years did any parental units among family members state that personal responsibility is for whites only. Some people erroneously and conveniently pull this cinematic abandonment of personal responsibility out of their ass. I guess it is much easier than comprehending this is a given, an expectation any rational parent would advertise, and more likely in a brazen manner if your parents were from the South. The elders I connect to in my family and throughout my formal education made it very clear you are an agent of your own liberation. Yet, miraculously, this has disappeared from the Black culture. Whatever happened to judging the actions of the individual and not overlaying the statistical realities of some on all? Once the proper assessments have been made, we need not to harp on the discrimination between relations. You know, where many Black conservatives lose their footing is when they refuse to acknowledge reality. I do not know what country these folks are citizens of, though they claim to be Americans, but we do still have systemic and structural problems that have become obstacles for the poor and Blacks. Ever care to consider if the concentration is more intense when multiple factors or attributes are present? What contributes to the disturbing factor is a trend I have witnessed. A certain outward aspect has gained popularity among Black conservatives. Speaking of the ones I have viewed during interviews, these conformers to the conventions of said middle class, as they aspire to the upper strata, feel inclined to shift into a role of overbearing parent. From this position, they obstruct the view of actuality, oftentimes with half-truths, which then generates approval for stereotypical narration to be pushed by their fellow conservatives. See how that works? So, Mr. Jackson then strings Trayvon Martin, the criminals who murdered an Australian student, knockout gangs, and people that have been raised to hate whites all together. First, could he be any more disposed to defraud his audience? By producing this list, it is obvious he is attempting to generate a false equivalent. With the murders and the members of the knockout gangs, we have people engaging in criminal activity. George Zimmerman, the man that killed Trayvon Martin, for those who have lived under a rock, was acquitted. This is not the same as being innocent of any and all wrongdoing. It certainly does not make Trayvon a thug or a criminal because he was on the receiving end of a muzzle. Now, as far as Blacks being raised to hate whites, yes, I have seen this. Yes, it is appalling, undignified, and lacks discernment. If I do agree with anything he said, it would be the implication that he made, that certain ancestors that forged forward to produce a better racial climate, or paved the way for others to have a favorable combination of circumstances, which came many times at a tremendous price, would have been insulted to see how some of our youth behave. There is no doubt about that in my mind. Some of them would be mortified. These youths, the ones that have prostrated themselves to the gods of violence and needless disturbance, are displayed on the world stage. Come on now, we know that fear sells, and they are displayed on the world stage like slaves at an auction. Of course, this is easy to do when they have attached a negative inseparable companion to themselves and projected it onto others. People do not make the distinction between the individual and collective for many reasons, but it seems humans have a fondness for formulatic conceptions that, even when accurately applied, rarely provides attention to detail. it is obvious he and others of his mindset are playing to the frustration of others. Let's face it, some Americans watered down all grievances generated by blacks as excuses. So, if things do not progress, and due to this simplistic way at dealing with actuality is embraced, then a complex situation bears its weight on the individual who is considering this, unfortunately, not necessarily from a rational position. This allows them to become fed up and cork emotions within, ones that when released only aids over refinement. These are the same crew that loves to proclaim that Democrats and the media always makes apologies for the black race failings. Here again, with the collectivist annoyance, we have a violent American subculture that glorifies crime, misogyny, profanity, among many other despicable things. This is not restricted to blacks. Fear, hate, entitlement, lack of self-respect, need for instant gratification, poor decision-making, the economy, among other things, is what is driving the illegitimate births, poverty, high crime, high school dropout rates, and government dependency. You may claim this is rooted in the black race. This is our curse. It is genetic. I say you are full of shit. This is a negative path that no racial or ethnic group in America is removed from 100%. There will always be someone who suffers most. Again, let's make sure that we know what is, and then provide factual evidence to back these claims up. We need more black people to repudiate destructive behavior, not apologize for it. Sure, I agree with this, but we also need not shield the unpleasant realities, no matter if they are political, social, or judicial, that are uniquely American in makeup. So, we have the most iconic blacks. We have the largest black middle class and the largest black millionaires per capita. The success of the few removes barriers that exist. The success of the few is proof that the American dream is real. This is reason for people to assume a position of complacency. We should just shut the fuck up and enjoy as we sing this old lullaby and put our mental selves into a coma. I've always rejected the news media and self-appointed black leaders' persistent efforts in regulating blacks into a group of political phantoms, void of individualism and personal responsibility. Likewise, I reject your tripe that we should be happy with the success of a few. A man is to be fairly evaluated or judged by his own character and actions, not by the characters and actions of various members of his racial or socioeconomic collective. So, if I see a sizable group of people suffering and not entirely due to their decisions, I must speak out. Chemical predestination did not bring these people to their position. It was a host of occurrences. Among those are reason and choice. Indeed, I cannot take most black conservatives seriously. At least most that I have witnessed at political conventions and during TV interviews. Why? Because it never ceases to befuddle me. The unsound loyalty they give to a party that seems to insult their race at every turn. How can they, with a straight face, pontificate that black people voting reportedly for Democrats 90% of the time is the cause of all of the ills found within the black communities throughout the United States. To do so appears to be laced with bias, faulty reasoning that enables one to permanently park on the plantation. Thank you for listening.